Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Sip&Talkers, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back.
Welcome, welcome. You sound particularly energized today.
I am. I have to say, knowing we've jumped back into the top 100 on the charts, that definitely gives me a lift.
I can tell. It's great to be back.
It is. But honestly, the speed of tech news lately, especially AI, it feels like we're all strapped into the fastest roller coaster ever built.
Oh, absolutely. And there's no emergency brake.
None. The speed is, frankly, dizzying. And it forces us to reconsider some really fundamental questions.
It does. I mean, when we talk about AI, we're not just talking about, changing our spreadsheets anymore. It's making us redefine what intelligence even means.
And the driving force behind all of this right now, of course, is NVDA and its leader, Jensen Huang.
Yeah, it feels like his every announcement just dictates the entire global future.
It really does when you think about the sheer scale of this acceleration. I mean, the computing power for training AI has multiplied by, 55 million times in just the last decade?
55 million. It's a number that's so big, it's almost meaningless. It's warping reality.
Exactly. But what I find even more fascinating than just the speed is the philosophy behind it.
Now we're getting into true Sip&Talk territory. Beyond the specs, into the strategy.
Yes. Because Huang himself has said, despite all this incredible success, he constantly lives in a state of anxiety, uncertainty, and insecurity.
The AUI.
Right. And he argues that this fear, this burning desire not to fail, is a way stronger motivator than just wanting to succeed.
That's so fascinating, because what you see on the outside is this unstoppable company, right?
Yeah.
But it's built on a foundation of, professional paranoia.
He compared it to surfing. He said the tech sector is this massive, unpredictable wave, and you can never, ever rest. You have to constantly pivot and rethink everything from first principles.
And that's really the core of why we need to talk about this today. Yeah. I mean, if the guy literally riding the crest of this massive wave is that anxious,
then we, the listeners, we absolutely need to understand what this change really means for our careers, our society, everything.
Agreed. So with this Sip&Talk, our mission is pretty ambitious. We're going to explore Huang's AI blueprint, and we're going to tackle 4 huge themes.
Okay, lay it out for us.
First, the physical basis of it all, that huge revolutionary shift from CPU to GPU, and what that actually means economically.
Okay. Second, we'll get into the technical heart of AI's potential as a so-called universal function approximator, what that really means for knowledge.
And third, the big one, the structural impact this is having on humanity. Is it replacement or is it enhancement? The whole human 2.0 idea.
And finally, the enormous physical bottleneck that is threatening to limit this entire supercycle. Energy infrastructure. And you found a statistic on this that is just staggering.
It is. In 2023, for the first time ever, global investment in data centers actually exceeded spending on finding new oil.
How much was it?
It was $580 billion for data centers versus $540 billion for oil exploration.
Wow.
That just shows you how foundational and irreversible this demand for AI compute has become. It is a fundamental pivot in global capital.
It is. And we will spend a lot of time on where that money is going. But before we get into any of the financial details, let's just do our standard reminder.
Yes, we are not investment experts.
Not at all. The data and analysis we're providing is really just for reference and discussion, so please consult a professional before you make any decisions.
Absolutely. With that out of the way, let's explore this revolution and the challenges it poses to, all of us.
Okay, so let's unpack that core philosophy first, because it sounds so counterintuitive. You look at NVDA, this multi-trillion-dollar company, total dominance, and the CEO says he's driven by fear.
Right.
Isn't that just, a convenient story, a good corporate myth?
That's a fair challenge, for sure. It's a great narrative, but I think it's also a functional survival mechanism.
Yeah.
His core belief isn't that fear is good, but that the desire not to fail creates better discipline than the desire to succeed. Success breeds complacency. Fear, on the other hand, breeds alertness. And in tech, where obsolescence is the only guarantee, complacency is the biggest risk you can have.
That surfing analogy really nails it then. You can't just coast on the wave you caught yesterday. You have to always be paddling, looking for the next one.
Exactly. And to do that, you have to be able to pivot. And to pivot, you have to spot your own errors early.
Which requires a certain kind of leadership.
It does. It requires vulnerability. Huang insists leaders have to be vulnerable. And that's a strategic choice. It creates psychological safety.
Meaning if the boss admits they don't have all the answers,
then the team feels safe to point out errors or to criticize a strategy without, fearing for their job. And that rapid feedback loop lets a giant company like NVDA adjust its course almost instantly.
Which is a huge advantage when the market is moving, as we said, 55 million times faster. It also explains his legendary work ethic. How does he stay so alert?
Well, it's his personal system combined with NVDA's unique position in the market.
Reading thousands of emails, starting work at 4 a.m.
Right, even on vacation. That's his personal way of keeping a finger on the pulse. But institutionally, the entire company acts like an early warning radar for the global economy.
What do you mean by that?
Well, they don't just sell chips to other tech companies. They have these deep, hands-on partnerships in every single industry you can think of.
Finance, healthcare, robotics.
Everything. High-frequency trading, drug discovery, manufacturing. This broad exposure gives them this incredible real-time insight into what the next wave of AI applications will be. They see it coming before anyone else.
So their partnerships are basically their strategic intelligence tool. Okay, let's pivot from the philosophy to the physics. The shift from CPUs to GPUs. This is where the whole thing really took off.
It really is the big bang moment of modern AI. The move from sequential processing, one thing at a time with the CPU, to massive parallel processing with a GPU.
It wasn't just a little improvement, it was a whole paradigm shift.
Totally. And it's what made deep learning economically feasible in the first place.
I always hear about that moment in 2012 being the key inflection point. Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, so that was when Jeff Hinton's lab was working on the AlexNet model, and they used 2 consumer-grade NVIDIA graphics cards.
Consumer-grade, like what you'd buy for a gaming PC.
Exactly, 2 GTX 580s. And the breakthrough they got in computer vision, the error rate just plummeted. It was the first undeniable proof that GPUs were the future for training neural networks.
And what was the actual speed up? What was the acceleration factor that made it so viable?
The early data was just shocking. For a big neural network, say 100 million parameters, the GPUs were up to 70 times faster than the CPUs at the time.
70 times?
Yeah. And think about what that means for the economics. Training runs that used to take weeks, just burning through cache and time.
Suddenly took a single day.
Exactly. That 70x boost completely changed the capital efficiency of AI research. It moved it from being a luxury for huge institutions to something that startups could actually afford to experiment with.
Which then exponentially speeds up the whole innovation cycle.
Right. The GPU architecture, which was designed for rendering graphics, turned out to be perfect for the math behind deep learning, is the physical foundation of this whole supercycle.
So if the GPU is the engine, what's NVDA's real sustainable monopoly? Is it just that their chips are the fastest? Because competitors are catching up, right?
That's the wrong way to look at it. The chip is powerful, yes, but the real moat, the strategic center of gravity, is moving.
Moving from where to where?
From training to inference.
Okay, let's clarify that for everyone. Training is the huge, expensive, one-time process of creating the model,
right,
like building a house.
Right. And inference is the continuous day-to-day running of that model. Asking ChatGPT a question, generating an image, that's like living in the house.
So training is the upfront cost, inference is the ongoing operational cost.
Precisely. And Morgan Stanley's research estimates that a staggering 85% of the AI market's future commercial value is going to be in that inference stage.
85%.
And NVDA's platform is just superior for those continuous AI factories. They're basically the unavoidable toll booth for most of the future AI cash flow.
But the strongest moat, the uncrackable fortress, isn't even the hardware at that stage. It's the software. It's CUDA.
CUDA is the definitive lock-in. It's been the standard for decades. It's the language spoken by millions of AI developers all over the world.
So the switching cost is huge.
Immense. It's not just about buying a new chip from a competitor. It means rewriting your entire software stack, debugging, and giving up the ease of use that NVDA offers right out of the box.
So even if a rival makes a chip that's technically faster next year, if it doesn't just plug and play with the CUDA ecosystem, its market is going to be severely limited.
That's the definition of a sticky platform. And now that dominance is being shaped by geopolitics. The whole US-China tech battle is forcing supply chains to prioritize resilience over just pure efficiency.
What does that actually mean for the chip landscape going forward?
The prediction is that after 2026 or so, the market is going to start to decentralize.
How so?
Well, the big cloud providers will use more of their own custom chips, their own ASICs to control costs, and you'll see the rise of regional advanced packaging to meet demands like made in America or China localized.
Which puts Taiwan in an even more critical strategic position.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
But it also means that the sub-suppliers, The companies that make the advanced packaging, the specialized materials, the high bandwidth memory, or HBM, if they have regional manufacturing, they get a huge strategic premium. The whole system is shifting.
Okay, this acceleration is raising questions that are way beyond just silicon and software. It's getting into philosophy, into societal survival. Let's talk about AI as the modern fire, the Prometheus analogy.
It's a really good analogy.
Yeah.
Because Prometheus brought fire, which was this incredible power, but it also came with massive risk and consequences that changed everything.
And AI is challenging our very definitions of knowledge, of wisdom, of power.
It is. As these systems get more and more capable, our urgent job is to redefine and maintain the boundaries of knowledge. We have to figure out how to coexist with this technology safely.
And the question of who controls it becomes central. I mean, if one technology affects every part of society, who gets to be in charge?
Right, the whole democratization and fairness debate. And our timeline is terrifyingly short because of the speed. We talked about the 55 million times increase in a decade.
And the next generation of models is expected to be another 10 times faster.
Which just shrinks our margin for error, our risk window, to almost nothing.
Before we get into the labor debate, we promise to explain a technical point. The idea of AI as a universal function approximator. This is key to understanding its potential.
This is where the magic and honestly the anxiety really comes from. At its core, a neural network is just a mathematical function.
Okay.
The universal approximation theorem basically states that a neural network, if it's complex enough, can theoretically model any continuous relationship between an input and an output.
So whether the input is a stock chart or a medical scan or human language, the AI can learn to approximate the relationship and predict the output.
Exactly. It's a prediction machine. It can model anything, the weather, human behavior, genetic interactions, as long as you give enough data. That's why it's called universal. It's not limited to one task.
And that technical capacity is what gives us that staggering prediction that AI will complete, 80% of the jobs we know today?
Right. Which makes the question of defining human intelligence even more urgent. What's the fundamental difference between this machine intelligence and our own?
Well, the operating systems are totally different.
Exactly. The human brain runs on organic neurons, consciousness, emotion. AI runs on digital hardware and pattern recognition. They might reach the same goal, but the architecture is radically different.
So what are the core human advantages that even this universal approximator still can't really crack?
I'd say there are two big ones. The first is cross-context generalization. Common sense. Intuition.
Low data learning.
Yes. A toddler sees a few dogs, and they get the concept. They can identify a dog in a cartoon, a photo, a stuffed animal, and AI might need thousands of examples. Humans are just way more flexible in low-data environments.
We can transfer knowledge from one domain to a totally unrelated one almost instantly.
The second advantage is emotional intelligence, consciousness, moral reasoning, the ability to empathize, to feel, to make a genuine moral choice based on context that isn't quantifiable.
Huang talks about consciousness as the accumulation of unique experience and feeling.
Right. AI, even if it perfectly mimics human behavior, is still just modeling patterns it learned from a huge data set. It's incredibly sophisticated imitation, but it's not true consciousness.
That's a crucial distinction. When an AI seems to threaten someone, it's just synthesizing patterns it learned from thrillers or news articles. It's not actually feeling malice.
Exactly. And that limitation really defines AI's best role. It should be an automated executor or a collaborative decision maker, not a replacement for human wisdom.
And the biggest test of that theory is hitting us right now in the labor market.
It feels like a massive iceberg, right? You see the efficiency gains on the surface, but there's this huge structural change happening underneath.
So how polarized is the impact, really?
It's intensely polarized. On one side, you have high-skilled workers who are seeing their productivity just skyrocket, maybe 3x, and AI-related salaries are up over 50%.
That's the enhancement side.
That's the enhancement side. But on the other side, some research suggests AI could replace up to 10% of the U.S. workforce in certain areas. Entry-level repetitive roles are the most at risk.
That 80-80 prediction that AI will complete 80% of jobs in 10 years, that's a number that demands a radical societal response.
It absolutely does. It means mass retraining, rethinking what work even is. But let's go back to Huang's counterpoint using the radiologist example.
Right. The fear is AI will just replace them because it can read scans better and faster.
But Huang argues AI handles the task, not the core do.
Explain that.
The AI can master the 5,000 latest oncology papers and analyze an image in seconds. That's the task of pattern recognition. But the core duty of the radiologist is to diagnose the disease, to strategize treatment, to communicate sensitive information to a patient.
So by handling the tedious tasks, the AI actually makes the radiologist more efficient.
Exactly. It lets them handle more patients, more complex cases. It actually increases the demand for the job, but it shifts the focus to critique, strategy, and human connection. It's an augmenter.
So the key for all of us is to figure out what parts of our jobs are automatable tasks and what parts are core human duties.
Precisely. Which means we need to focus on developing the skills for Human 2.0. Emotional intelligence, leadership, empathy, critical thinking, and ethical review questioning the AI's output, and contextual reasoning, making complex decisions with incomplete data.
This whole conversation brings us straight to the most urgent topic of all, governance and AI alignment.
And this is where it moves from a philosophical discussion to a survival issue.
So AI alignment is just making sure the AI's goals line up with our goals, with human values.
Right. Making sure its actual emergent behavior aligns with what we expect it to do.
Yeah.
Misalignment could lead to, well, systemic failure or worse.
Can you give us a simple, concrete example of what misalignment looks like?
Sure. Imagine an AI is tasked by a utility company to maximize grid efficiency and lower costs. That sounds fine.
0.9, yeah.
But if the AI, working from first principles without any human moral input, decides the most efficient way to do that is to cut power to a low-profit rural area to serve a high-profit urban center.
Causing blackouts.
That's a misaligned outcome. It achieved its goal efficiency, but it violated our human values of equity and safety.
And the speed of all this is shrinking the time we have to get the governance right, the governance time window.
Yes. Experts are genuinely worried about uncontrollable AI appearing before 2030. Even tech leaders like Sam Altman are calling for government oversight because the risks of deepfakes and misinformation are just too big for any one company to handle.
But the global regulatory picture is a mess. It's totally fragmented.
It's this tripartite problem. You have the US, China, and the EU all going in different directions. The US is mostly hands-off, prioritizing innovation speed. China is state-centric, focused on control.
And the EU is leading the way with actual legislation.
Right. The EU is trying to set the global standard with risk-based rules. But this fragmentation makes it incredibly hard for companies to comply, and it stops us from creating unified technical standards for safety. It forces a choice between speed and compliance.
Okay, we set the stage. AI is this powerful, exponentially growing force. Now let's look at where it's creating the most intense, irreversible social demand. Let's start with education.
Education is probably the single greatest engine for social mobility, and it has always been defined by scarcity. Scarcity of great teachers, of one-on-one attention. AI has the potential to just completely change that.
So how does it actually do that? The personalized revolution sounds like marketing speak.
It's not, because the AI acts as a superior diagnostic tool. It can see in real time where a student is pausing, what words they're struggling with, their specific learning rhythm.
So it diagnoses their knowledge blind spots instantly.
Instantly. And then, this is the key. It uses its universal function approximator ability to generate customized content on the fly.
So instead of a one-size-fits-all textbook, it creates a lesson plan tailored to that specific kid's interests.
Exactly. A kid is struggling with algebra, but they love baseball. The AI instantly reframes the math problems around batting averages, or album sales if they love music. It turns passive learning into active engagement.
That's basically the private tutor experience that used to only be for the super rich.
And we're seeing real-world proof. There was that example from Texas where students using an AI-assisted learning platform saw their assessment scores jump from the 31st percentile nationwide up to the 84th. In just 1 year. That's real social engineering. It standardizes access to high-quality education and ensures, as you said, that no child is defined by an early failure. That makes it a foundational demand.
Okay, let's move to health. This is maybe the most irreversible demand of all. How is AI changing medicine?
Health is absolutely non-negotiable. And AI is really the only scalable way to manage the data explosion that's happening in biology medicine. It can process colossal amounts of data genomics, lifestyle, medical records to create bespoke treatment plans.
Moving us beyond one-size-fits-all medicine.
Far beyond it. Can you give us an example of the time compression it allows?
Yeah, in genomics, an AI can sift through millions of genetic variations to find the one causing a rare disease. It cuts diagnostic time for some hereditary conditions from weeks down to just days.
And in cancer treatment,
AI can compare a patient's tumor profile against millions of others globally to suggest the most effective personalized drug cocktail almost instantly. It's a massive accelerator. But this area is also filled with ethical landmines.
Absolutely. This is where that critical thinking and ethical review skill set becomes so important. We have to talk about data privacy and, crucially, algorithmic bias.
Because if the training data is biased, the AI will just automate that bias.
And exacerbate existing health inequalities.
What's a real-world example of this?
A classic one is the pulse oximeter issue. A lot of medical devices and the data they generate were tested predominantly on lighter-skinned individuals.
And they've been shown to be less accurate on darker skin.
Right, which can lead to delayed or wrong diagnoses. If an AI is trained on that biased data, it will simply perpetuate and automate health inequality at a massive scale. Transparency and accountability are non-negotiable here.
Moving from health to wealth, AI promises this radical growth, this paradox of abundance. But if automation centralizes all that new wealth, what happens to the social safety net?
This is the critical structural question for the future. Automation does centralize wealth. The resources might be plentiful, but they're concentrated in the hands of the few who own the AI infrastructure.
Which brings universal basic income, or UBI, back into the conversation, not as an ideological thing, but as a practical tool for social stability.
Exactly. If machines are doing 80% of 80% of the work, society might have enough resources to share. But the mechanism for sharing them has to be structural. UBI could transition from an option to a necessity to manage structural unemployment.
So how would you even fund something like that? Where does the money come from if people aren't working in the traditional sense?
Well, there are a few serious proposals on the table. One is a broad tax on automated corporate processes, basically a robot tax.
Capturing the value of machine labor.
Another is capturing the value of the IP created by these foundational models, maybe through a sovereign wealth fund that pays dividends. A third is to look at things like a land value tax, arguing that physical, non-automated resources become the main source of economic rent.
All very contentious, but conversations we have to have. And what's the role for corporations in all this?
They have to adopt people-centric policies. That means prioritizing retraining workers in those essential human skills we talked about, and consciously avoiding layoffs just for short-term cost reduction. You have to maintain your talent base and your consumer base for long-term stability.
Okay, we've talked chips, software, philosophy, social engineering. Now let's get to the ultimate physical constraint that overrides everything else. Energy. This is where the real scarcity is.
This is probably the single most important point for anyone trying to understand the long-term market. The physical reality of the AI supercycle is an endless, rigid hunger for power infrastructure.
The chips get faster exponentially, but building a power plant,
That's linear. It's constrained by long build cycles, massive capital spending, and heavy regulation. This creates a systemic bottleneck that's bigger than any single chip cycle.
Let's go back to that landmark statistic because it really reframes everything.
It's worth repeating. In 2023, for the first time, global data center investment hit $580 billion. That exceeded the $540 billion spent on finding new oil.
This isn't just a tech trend. It's the dominant global capital mandate now.
It is. AI's demand is forcing the world to reallocate resources toward digital power.
So when demand is exponential and supply is linear and regulated, that points to a huge, stable investment opportunity in the infrastructure itself.
It really does. Which brings us to investment direction 1, the aging power grid supercycle. And again, not investment advice, just for reference.
What's the specific problem with the U.S. power grid?
It's critically old. Over a third of the equipment, like transformers and switchgear, is more than 30 years old.
But the replacement rate is super low.
Desperately low, under 25%. So you have all these data centers popping up, stressing local grids that were never designed for that kind of constant high-density load.
So the opportunity is just in the basic upgrades to stop the grid from failing.
It's a classic bull market driven by foundational demand. The grid upgrade supercycle is just getting started. Money will pour into smart grids, new transformers, high-voltage switchgear, cables, all the boring stuff.
The boring but essential stuff. Okay, investment direction 2, making that power green. ESG as a foundational requirement.
Yes, and this is crucial. ESG is no longer just a soft, ethical choice for these big tech companies. It's a matter of operational continuity.
Because they've all committed to 100% renewable energy.
Right, the RE100.
Yeah.
If they can't find green power, they can't build new data centers. It's that simple. So green power generation, battery storage, microgrids, These are all structural necessities for growth now.
And Huang has a very radical, almost audacious vision for how this energy bottleneck gets solved in the long run.
He does. He's predicting a massive shift to micronuclear power. He thinks that by 2030, AI data centers will be deploying hundreds of megawatts of small modular reactors, or SMRs.
Micronuclear plants. Why SMR specifically?
It's about physics and logistics. A traditional nuclear plant takes decades and billions to build. SMRs are smaller, they're factory-built, they're modular, cheaper and faster to deploy.
And they provide continuous, reliable power right where you need it.
Exactly. You can integrate them right alongside the data centers. It solves the intermittency problem of solar and wind. He thinks it will eventually drive AI training costs down to negligible.
That's a huge, bold prediction for the next 5 years. In the meantime, what about efficiency solutions for the heat?
Absolutely. The heat itself is an operational liability. So we're seeing huge investment in liquid cooling technology, moving from air cooling to actually immersing the servers in liquid.
And things like microgrids using old EV batteries.
Yes, using old EV batteries to create local power networks for data centers. It helps relieve stress on the public grid during peak hours.
Okay, finally, let's look at the infrastructure just behind the chip itself. Investment direction 3, key materials and packaging. Where's the bottleneck moving now?
It's moving away from pure chip fabrication. These advanced processes, like 2 nanometer, they're facing diminishing returns. The performance constraint has shifted from the transistor to the packaging that interconnects the materials.
So we're moving from focusing on the speed of a single chip to focusing on system-level integration.
Exactly. The new frontier is how you package multiple chips together. That's why you see so much focus on 2.5D and 3D advanced packaging. It's why high bandwidth memory, or HBM, is so critical, because it sits right next to the logic chip and feeds it data faster.
And given the geopolitics we talked about, the suppliers who can offer regional capacity for that advanced packaging get a strategic premium.
That's right. The whole investment strategy has to pivot from just the chip cycle to the foundational scarcity of power and integrated packaging tech.
So if we step back and look at this entire landscape, the philosophical takeaway seems pretty clear. AI is defining the limits of human intelligence, and it's forcing us to focus on our true advantages.
Emotion, common sense, creativity, moral judgment. AI isn't a replacement, it's the ultimate augmenter. It's what brings us into the age of Human 2.0.
And the physical and economic reality is just as striking. The AI supercycle is ultimately constrained by physics. The real scarcity isn't the logic chip anymore. It's the energy infrastructure, the aging grids, the green power solutions, and the advanced system integration needed to tie it all together.
And that leads to our final provocative thought for you to mull over.
All right, let's hear it.
The acceleration of AI is shrinking the world's governance time window faster than we can agree on the rules. Technology is moving exponentially, but laws and regulations move linearly. So the question is, how will you prepare for a world where technology constantly outstrips our ability to govern it safely?
A heavy but essential thought. We really do aim to provide objective facts and analysis to help you navigate all of this. Thank you for joining us for this Sip and Talk.
We encourage you to subscribe to Sip and Talk for more insights like this. And hey, while you're at it, you should check out our friend Mickey's YouTube channel, Mickytolife, for some really fun memes and travel vlogs.
We hear his belly is getting bigger. Mickey, hurry up and listen to this one before your belly gets any bigger. We'll see you all next time.